Throughout the semester, I have learned that in order for the United States Supreme Court to hear a case, there has to be some sort of constitutional violation in question. And surely, Miranda versus Arizona, according to the court's findings, falls nothing short of a constitutional violation. And what is that constitutional violation, you ask? It's the right from self-incrimination. According to the United States Supreme Court website, the constitutional right that was violated was the right from self-incrimination, the Fifth Amendment. And interestingly, according to Richard A. Leo, a law professor at the University of San Francisco, mentioned in his article in the Northwestern Pritzker Law Journal states, and I quote, "Since the late 19th century, police interrogation practices have been regulated by the Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution," end quote. And I found that interesting because the two certainly correlate. And since Miranda was not read his rights and consequently wasn't aware of them, and ultimately he admitted and confessed to the crime, um, he self incriminated himself, therefore violating that right. The most important takeaway from Miranda versus Arizona is the ramifications it has had on the United States criminal justice system. And I would even argue that this is the most influential case on the criminal justice system because whenever a suspect is arrested or during an interrogation, the Miranda rights must be relayed onto the suspect. And according to mirandarights.org, be aware of your rights. The Miranda rights are as follows. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. And I'm sure most of you, if not all, have heard that before in TV shows or movies. And it's a pretty standard practice in nowadays policing. Um, and the largest ramification of Miranda versus Arizona. There is a plethora of reasons as to how the court came to on their decision. However, according to Amos Guiora, a law professor at the S&J Quinney College of Law at the University of Utah, mentioned that Chief Justice Earl Warren sought to protect the rights of the vulnerable uh, through the opinion he wrote on the decision of the United States Supreme Court in the with regarding the question of the right from self-incrimination. And I specifically chose citing to this rationale by the court and by Amos Guiora's observations because it certainly does make a lot of sense. And again, according to Guiora, that's because there's a huge difference between suspects and the interrogators. And logically so, uh, suspects, depending on who they may be, uh, don't have much legal knowledge. However, that may or may not be true in most cases, but here in Miranda versus Arizona, it definitely was true because Ernesto Miranda did not even have a ninth grade education. And on top of that, he had some mental issues going on as well. So this is why it's important to have uh, the Miranda rights. So for those who are vulnerable and don't have much legal knowledge, are well aware of the rights they have um, moving forward in their specific situations. My take on the Miranda versus Arizona matter was a roller coaster, to say the least. Initially, I really did not agree with Miranda versus Arizona. And even after reading the case, I still kind of disagreed. And although now I do agree, but allow me to explain my journey. At first, I thought it makes a whole lot of sense to have uh, the right from self incrimination. Um, and with my example, as you can see in the slide, my logic is that if someone or the public rather has the right to be made aware of their rights as pertained by the Miranda warnings, does the rest of the public have the right to be made aware of crimes they do not know exist, or made aware that the action they're taking part in constitutes a crime? And because if someone was to act in a way that would be constituted a crime and they genuinely innocently did not know that constituted a crime, that would be self-incrimination, I thought, and which would be nothing different than um, a confession made by not knowing your rights, which is also self-incrimination. But the key difference that I realized was that the um, the difference between not knowing a crime that one could be engaging in versus um, a confession by the hands of interrogators without knowing your rights is that uh, the latter is in the hands of law enforcement and is in a coercive environment versus uh, committing a crime on your own free will. So ultimately, yes, I do agree with the case and its decisions.